What's up, Royal Sussex Squad? Welcome back to another truth-packed episode where we cut through the palace propaganda, slice up the tabloid hypocrisy and tell it like it is about Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Now, you all have seen the headlines. Every week, the British press finds new ways to praise King Charles and his so-called hard-working siblings, Princess Anne, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and Prince Edward, while finding fresh excuses to drag Meghan and Harry for simply existing in peace. But today, we're flipping that script. We're going to talk about the real royal siblings, the ones who grew up in privilege, wrapped in scandal, protected by the palace, and celebrated by a media that still refuses to give Harry and Meghan the respect they deserve. The truth is, the British media's obsession with tearing down the Sussexes has always been about control. Harry and Meghan walked away from a centuries-old system that thrives on silence and submission. They refused to play the game. And that decision terrified the establishment, because for once a royal couple wasn't under their thumb. So while they were demonising Meghan for breaking protocol and stealing the spotlight, look at what was happening behind palace gates. King Charles's siblings were each living their own version of royal privilege, some messy, some quiet, and one, in particular, absolutely disgraceful. Let's start with Princess Anne. The media loves to call her the hardest-working royal. Year after year, she tops the list of royal engagements, 457 in 2023, more than King Charles himself. But let's ask the real question, what does that even mean? Does quantity equal impact? Because Meghan and Harry's few, carefully chosen engagements have done more to touch lives, raise awareness and inspire action than 100 ribbon-cutting ceremonies ever could. Princess Anne has perfected the image of stoic duty. She shows up, shakes hands, smiles and leaves. The press loves it because she doesn't challenge anything. She doesn't question the system, she doesn't speak out, and she certainly doesn't stand up against injustice within her own family. That's what the palace calls loyal. But let's call it what it really is: silence. And that silence was deafening when Meghan was being ripped apart by the press. Imagine being part of the same family and watching a pregnant woman endure a campaign of hatred so vile it nearly cost her life, and saying nothing. Princess Anne could have spoken up, even privately. She didn't. That's not loyalty to family. That's loyalty to an institution built on protecting itself, not its people. Now, don't get me wrong, Princess Anne's had her own share of headlines: 2 marriages, a divorce, affairs whispered in the press back in the day. But notice how the tabloids handled it: respectful, measured, even sympathetic. They painted her as strong, independent and no-nonsense. Meghan shows strength, and suddenly she's difficult. Anne gets respect for being tough. Meghan gets abuse. One is royal stoicism, the other is diva behaviour. That's the double standard we're talking about, and it's rooted in race, class and fear of change. Then we get to Andrew, or should I say, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, since even the palace had to strip him of the prince title in 2025. But not before protecting him for years. Think about that. The man was associated with Jeffrey Epstein, an international predator. He was accused of sexual assault by Virginia Giuffre, who was just 17 at the time. He denied it all, of course, but he also settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. You don't hand over millions unless there's something you want buried. And what did the palace do? They shielded him. His mother, the late Queen Elizabeth, quietly covered him financially. The press gave him every benefit of the doubt. They said Andrew made mistakes. Mistakes? This man was photographed walking in Central Park with a convicted sex offender. That's not a mistake, that's a choice. But instead of facing real consequences, Andrew got to keep his mansion, attend family events, and stroll into church with King Charles and Queen Camilla like nothing happened. The same media that called Meghan a national disgrace for wearing off-shoulder dresses had nothing to say when Andrew disgraced the entire monarchy. The hypocrisy is staggering. Meghan held her belly during pregnancy, and the tabloids wrote think pieces about how she was attention-seeking. Andrew was linked to Epstein, and suddenly the press developed selective amnesia. It tells you everything about what and who they choose to protect. And here's where it gets really twisted. In 2024, Buckingham Palace tried to sneak Andrew back into public view. They had him at Easter service, standing there smiling next to King Charles. They wanted to test the public reaction, see if the outrage had faded. It was disgusting. This is the same palace that couldn't find the decency to correct lies told about Meghan, but had no problem rehabilitating a man tied to one of the darkest scandals in royal history. That's the system Harry and Meghan walked away from. That's what they refused to be part of. And for that, the British establishment branded them traitors. But really, they just refused to be complicit. Then we've got Edward, the forgotten one. He's quiet, not because he's dignified, but because he's irrelevant. He joined the Royal Marines, quit after 4 months, and then tried his hand at television production with his company Ardent Productions. That company tanked, and he was quietly moved back under the royal wing. Yet somehow Edward and his wife Sophie are called stabilising influences. Stabilising what exactly? Mediocrity? If Harry had quit the military after 4 months, the Daily Mail would have printed front-page hit pieces for months. Harry dishonours his uniform. Harry can't hack it. Harry's failure costs taxpayers millions. But when Edward does it? Silence, polite excuses. He decided to pursue other opportunities. The double standard isn't just blatant, it's institutional. You see, the monarchy protects its own as long as you play by the rules, the unspoken rules of silence, obedience, and hypocrisy. The moment you challenge those rules, you're out. And that's exactly what Harry and Meghan did. King Charles' siblings are relics of a dying system. They represent a monarchy that values image over integrity, hierarchy over humanity. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan have built something new, something powerful, something honest. They don't need crowns to shine. Their influence, their reach, and their compassion speak louder than any royal title ever could. Harry and Meghan walked away and built Archewell. They built the Invictus Games. They used their platforms to talk about mental health, equity, compassion, and truth. And while the palace clings to its dusty traditions, the Sussexes are out here redefining service. They're proving that you can serve people without bowing to a throne. And what does the media do in response? They lose their minds. Every time Meghan launches a new project, every time Harry appears at an event, the tabloids foam at the mouth. Why? Because the Sussexes are thriving. Because the narrative that the monarchy pushed, that Harry and Meghan would fade into obscurity without the royal brand, has completely backfired. They're bigger than ever. They're respected across the world. They're the face of a new generation that values authenticity over aristocracy. And let's not forget, the same media that called Meghan a burden to the monarchy now profits off her name every single week. They can't stop writing about her. They can't stop talking about her. They need her to survive. Because without Meghan Markle, the British tabloids have nothing but old scandals and staged photo ops. Meanwhile, King Charles's siblings are living proof of how broken that system is. Anne is praised for obedience. Edward is praised for existing. Andrew was protected until the very last possible moment. And Charles has spent his life trying to patch together a family that was never built on love, only obligation. Harry saw that cycle and said, "No more." He broke it. Meghan supported him in that. And now their children, Archie and Lily, are growing up in a home filled with love, sunlight, and freedom. Not in an institution that treats emotion as weakness and humanity as a liability. Every time a new scandal hits the royal family, whether it's Andrew's disgrace, Camilla's PR manoeuvres, or palace leaks about health crises, it reinforces one truth. Harry and Meghan made the right choice. They chose peace over pretense. They chose freedom over fakery. And the world respects them for it. So the next time someone says the Sussexes abandoned the monarchy, remind them what the monarchy really represents. A hierarchy built on silence, where predators are protected, where women are expected to suffer quietly, and where change is treated like treason. Harry and Meghan didn't abandon it. They escaped it. They transcended it. And while King Charles' siblings are stuck in that outdated system, playing the same old PR games, the Sussexes are building legacies that will last for generations. They've redefined what royal service looks like, not duty to a crown, but duty to humanity. That's what scares the palace. That's what the tabloids can't control. Harry and Meghan are living proof that you can be royal without being trapped. You can be powerful without being cruel. You can be successful without being part of the establishment. So, as the palace scrambles to keep up appearances, as Charles's siblings cling to their titles and routines, remember who really represents progress, compassion, and truth. It's not the ones hiding behind palace gates. It's the ones walking free in Montecito. Harry and Meghan are the blueprint for modern royalty, independent, global and authentic. And while the British media continues to melt down, trying to destroy them, the Sussexes just keep winning. If you've made it this far, squad, you already know. The truth always comes out. Meghan and Harry's light exposes the rot that's been hidden for generations. And every time the palace and press try to dim that light, it only shines brighter. King Charles III. Siblings, all about Princess Anne, ex-Prince Andrew and Prince Edward. King Charles remains close with his brothers and sister after their years of serving the monarchy. In addition to being the British monarch, King Charles has another role. As an older brother to his three siblings, Princess Anne, the former Prince Andrew and Prince Edward. King Charles is the eldest of the siblings born to Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, followed by Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, Andrew and Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh. The brothers and sister were often by their mother's side during her historic rule, devoting much of their lives to the monarchy and carrying out royal engagements for charitable causes. As they grew older, their responsibilities within the family became more significant. Now that King Charles acceded to the throne, and especially after his cancer diagnosis, Princess Anne and Prince Edward have become a source of support for their oldest brother and have stood by his side as they did with their mother. All about Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip's 4 children. In turn, he has also shown up for them, including after Princess Anne suffered minor injuries and concussion during an incident at her country home in June 2024, according to a statement from Buckingham Palace. It added that King Charles has been kept closely informed and joins the whole royal family in sending his fondest love and well wishes to the princess for a speedy recovery. Here's everything to know about King Charles's siblings: Princess Anne, Andrew, and Prince Edward. King Charles is the eldest child born to the late Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Therefore, he was first in line to inherit the throne from his mother. King Charles, born on November 14, 1948, was closely followed by his only sister, Princess Anne, who arrived on August 15, 1950. They were the only siblings welcomed before their mother acceded to the throne in February 1952. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip later announced the birth of Andrew on February 19, 1960, and Prince Edward was born on March 10, 1964. King Charles is about 12 years older than Andrew and around 15 years older than Prince Edward. King Charles and his siblings each have 2 kids. While Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip had a large family, their kids decided to keep their households smaller. King Charles, who is father to Prince William and Prince Harry, and his siblings welcomed 2 kids each, giving Queen Elizabeth 8 grandchildren. Princess Anne was the first to marry in 1973 when she wed Olympic gold medalist Captain Mark Phillips. They later divorced in 1992. The 2 welcomed son Peter in 1977 and daughter Zara in 1981, and they opted not to give their children official royal titles. I think it was probably easier for them, and I think most people would argue that there are downsides to having titles, Princess Anne told Vanity Fair in 2020. So I think that was probably the right thing to do. Andrew married Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, in 1986, after they were set up by her close childhood friend, Princess Diana, who married then Prince Charles in 1981. Andrew and Ferguson welcomed 2 daughters together, Princess Beatrice in 1988 and Princess Eugenie in 1990, before they separated in 1992 and officially divorced in 1996. Prince Edward married public relations executive Sophie Rhys-Jones in 1999, and they share a daughter, Lady Louise Windsor, born in 2003, and a son, James, Earl of Wessex, born in 2007. Meet the British royal family, a complete guide to the modern monarchy. Princess Anne and Prince Edward were recently named Councillors of State for King Charles. Princess Anne and Prince Edward support their oldest brother by serving as Councillors of State, which officially enables them to stand in for King Charles and carry out constitutional duties should he be abroad or unwell. Typically, the Councillors of State are made up of the monarch's spouse, Queen Camilla in this case, and the first 4 people in the line of succession over the age of 21: Prince William, Prince Harry, Andrew, and Princess Beatrice. The age cut-off means William's kids, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, are too young to serve in the role despite their place in the line of succession behind their father. However, since Andrew and Prince Harry are no longer senior working royals, a law was amended in 2022 to expand the group, allowing Princess Anne and Prince Edward to rejoin. The 2 previously held this role for their mother, Queen Elizabeth, before King Charles and Andrew's children were old enough to take on the roles. Princess Anne often earns the title of the hardest working royal in many years. Princess Anne has earned the right to call herself the hardest working royal, attending more events than anyone else in the family. Princess Anne conducted 457 engagements in 2023, more than King Charles' 425, and equally beat out her older brother in 2022 and 2021. Anne started attending royal engagements when she turned 18 and hasn't slowed down, remaining an important figure in the family as King Charles and Kate Middleton focus on their well-being amid their cancer treatments. Outside of her royal duties, Princess Anne is an avid and passionate horsewoman, prompting her late father Prince Philip to once say, "If it doesn't fart or eat hay, she isn't interested." She competed professionally as an equestrian in her 20s and became the first British Royal Olympian when she competed at the 1976 Olympics in Montreal riding Goodwill, one of Queen Elizabeth's horses. A complete timeline of King Charles' cancer diagnosis and treatment. Ex-Prince Andrew has been stripped of all royal and military titles. Andrew took a step back from his royal duties after his relationship with disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein came to light. In a Florida civil suit filed in 2015 against Epstein, a woman later identified as Virginia Giuffre alleged that the disgraced billionaire forced her to have sex with Andrew on 3 separate occasions, per court papers obtained by People. According to the lawsuit, Giuffre was 17 at the time, though Andrew denies the claims. Andrew continued to face scrutiny over the allegation, and in 2019, after a no-holds-barred interview with the BBC, where he expressed regret over his friendship with Epstein and continued to deny Giuffre's claims, he stepped back from public duty. In August 2021, Giuffre filed a sexual assault lawsuit against Andrew. 6 months later, in January 2022, Andrew was stripped of all his military titles and royal patronages with the Queen's approval and agreement. Andrew settled out of court with Giuffre in 2022 for an undisclosed amount. According to a joint statement from the attorneys, Prince Andrew regrets his association with Epstein and commends the bravery of Ms. Giuffre and other survivors in standing up for themselves and others. He pledges to demonstrate his regret for his association with Epstein by supporting the fight against the evils of sex trafficking and by supporting its victims. In January 2024, court documents related to a lawsuit involving Epstein were unsealed, and Andrew was among those named. Still, despite calls for an investigation into Andrew's part in the allegations, British police have said they have no plans to look further into the situation at this time. Giuffre died by suicide in April 2025, and in October, Buckingham Palace announced that Andrew had been stripped of all titles, including Prince, and will be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor going forward. He has also been ordered to surrender his lease at Royal Lodge. Prince Edward didn't follow the family tradition of going into the military. Though Prince Edward enlisted in the military like other royal family members did before him, it ultimately wasn't his passion. Prince Edward joined the Royal Marines in 1986, but 4 months into the start of training, he resigned. The news was made public in January 1987, after Edward didn't return to training following Christmas break. Prince Edward became the first in his immediate family not to make the military his career. King Charles and Andrew both served in the Navy like their father. At the time of Prince Edward's enlistment, Prince Philip was serving as the Marines' honorary Captain General. After leaving the Marines, Prince Edward worked for composer Andrew Lloyd Webber before launching his film production company Ardent Productions in 1993. He later stepped down from his place in the company in 2002, and it eventually shuttered in 2009, according to Vanity Fair. Years later, Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, are now central figures in the family, taking on duties on behalf of the monarchy. Princess Anne once fought off a kidnapping in 1974. Princess Anne was returning to Buckingham Palace with then-husband Mark Phillips when she was the target of a kidnapping attempt after Ian Ball blocked the car she was riding in and began firing shots at her chauffeur, Alex Callender, and her private detective, James Beaton. Ball then climbed into the front seat and ordered the 23-year-old royal to get out, to which she reportedly replied, Not bloody likely. Ball was eventually stopped by a passer-by, amateur boxer Ronnie Russell, and later caught by police and sentenced to life imprisonment in a psychiatric hospital. Anne recalled in a 1980 interview how she refused to cooperate when Ball tried to get her out of the car, but she saw no point in being rude during the attack, which she thinks lasted at least 10 minutes. "I was scrupulously polite because I thought it was silly to be too rude at that stage," she said, though her attitude eventually changed when he ripped the back of her dress. "That was his most dangerous moment. I lost my rag at that stage." Andrew attended Easter service with King Charles. Though Andrew doesn't attend official royal engagements, he has been seen at King Charles's side at family events in the past, including the Easter church service in March 2024. Andrew was spotted joining King Charles and Queen Camilla, as well as Princess Anne and her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence, and Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, at the Easter Matin service at St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. He continued to make appearances at similar family events since he was stripped of his titles and patronages by his mother, including his brother's coronation in 2023. Prince Edward received their late dad's title. When Prince Philip married then Princess Elizabeth in 1947, he was named the Duke of Edinburgh title by his father-in-law, King George VI, and held it until he died in 2021. While the title initially reverted to the Crown, King Charles conferred it on Prince Edward on his 59th birthday in 2023. Edward first learned he'd be the future Duke of Edinburgh shortly before his 1999 wedding to Sophie, when Prince Philip promised them the title, the palace announced in a statement at the time. The new title made Sophie the Duchess of Edinburgh, while their son James became the new Earl of Wessex, inheriting the earldom given to Edward on his wedding day. So let's keep amplifying it. Let's keep standing with them. Because this isn't just about royal gossip. It's about truth, justice, and breaking generational cycles of oppression. If you're proud of the Sussexes for standing tall, hit that subscribe button, drop a like and show your support in the comments. And if you want to help us keep bringing you the truth the tabloids won't touch, hit that super thanks button and keep the Royal Sussex Squad strong. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and always remember, the crown may have power, but integrity has the throne. Sussex Squad forever.